We are beginning the 16th chapter, and I want, if possible, to compress the 16th, 17th, and 18th into one, that is to say, into one exposition, because the subject matter relates to the. I'd like to take these three chapters together if we can. I don't know whether we will be able to tackle, but that's my intention. I want to see if we can tackle the three chapters, at least if not four, into one. Because the subject matter is in principle dealt with. What we have done is we have dealt with the thing in principle. Here now comes application. Application of the creation of supermind as the creator of the world. You see, we have seen that the one infinite existence, consciousness, and bliss, the eternal, gives rise to the flux of the many, the world. That's how we have seen. And the connection between the two is the link of the supermind, the truth consciousness into which the Satchidananda, the infinite consciousness and eternal, casts itself into a self-vision, a self-knowledge, and a self-view in which all the potentialities are held together. And it is that which projects itself into the world that we know. It's a mind, life, and body, and material, vital, and physical world, so to say, are a working out of that principle. Now, in these chapters, what he is trying to do is to show that mind, life, and matter are a working of the supermind from behind the veil. You see, that is what he is trying to show. That is the chapter 17th, 18th, and 19th, really speaking, are the chapters devoted to the development of the idea that supermind first projects, throws out of itself the truth consciousness. It becomes, so to say, the truth consciousness. It's the nature of the infinite consciousness when it creates to become truth consciousness. And when it becomes the truth consciousness, it then becomes a parent of or creative of the worlds that follow. The world of mind, world of life, and world of matter is nothing else but a veiled working of the supermind, veiled working of the truth consciousness. It is there working behind the working of mind, behind the working of life, behind the operations of inconscient energy of matter. That is what is happening. And in these chapters, that is the main subject which he develops. Now, that if we grant the proposition that supermind is and can be the creatrix of this world, or the truth consciousness can originate a world of flux of the many, then we need not go into every detail of the argument, because it is filled with the argument proving the working of mind supported behind the veil by the working of the supermind, working of life supported from behind by working of truth conscious power, and working of matter supported by the infinite existence, the principle of being. You see, it is that which is working. So that is what he is trying to show in these chapters. Well, here in the chapter 16th and 17th, we have two little more material for how the supermind projects itself into the world as we know it. Well, there he will. I'll therefore take up chapter 16th and give only the main ideas of the chapter 16th. First, God, as we know, is inalienable bliss of existence, consciousness, and it is our highest self. So that is the conception of God which we have aimed at. And when concentrated within itself, it is bliss. When it is active, it becomes the delight of the play of bliss. Do you see? When it is self-concentrated, it is a bliss of existence concentrated within its own self. And when it becomes active, well, it's the delight of the play of existence, and it becomes for us the universe. divine consciousness possesses the delight eternally. So for that the problem is not there. But if man is to attain divine life, then that veiled divine self must be unveiled to man. Otherwise, he cannot live divine life here. In actuality, two things we feel. One is the unity of the Satchidananda and the divided mentality, that is to say, the mental consciousness of man, not at all capable of realizing that fundamental, essential, self existent delight. So these two oppose each other. And if you want to attain the other one of them must be true and the other must be false. And if the other is true, then to reach the delight which is the true expression of the Supreme, well, one must abandon this world of life, because this world of life is not capable. That line we have once considered. He is again giving that argument to show that supermind works on triple status. Three statuses it takes up. There must therefore be a link, and we have seen last time that there is a link. Link is a supermind, link between the Satchidananda and the world of division, world of mind, life, and body, and the truth world of consciousness, existence, and bliss, connecting link being supermind. Well, now this supermind is Satchidananda, therefore proceeding out of the poise of unity into its movement. Is it not? Satchidananda proceeding out of its poise of unity into movement. And it is the infinite being moving out into determinative self-knowledge, which is force of the self also. At the same time, and all the forms are his conscious becoming, created by its own force, in its own self-extension, in infinite time and infinite space. This we have considered last time. Now, the supermind, check this analysis. Just take on the part. Mr. Left there. Well, in the supermind, the divine has three poises, or takes up three poises of world formation. Unity of things, not in the sense of Unitarian unity or Unitarian consciousness, not an unreal play of mental thought, but a real play of conscious being. Modification, second poise, is the modification of that unity, and which becomes the play of many in the one and one in the many, so as to support the manifestation of the many. And in that supramental poise, each is in all and all in each. That is to say, there is one soul essence, and differentiation is there only in soul form on the supramental level. So supermind, when it moves into manifestation, takes three poises. One is the unity of things, in which not a Unitarian unity, but a potentiality of the many is held. A modification of that unity into one in many and many in one, and a further modification of this, which creates the possibility of evolving a diversified world, diversified mind, the world of ego. So supermind, when it creates this world, takes almost to our mind and thinking, to our intellect, three poises. Poise of unity, in which potentially all the many are held, then a differentiation of one into many and many into one, without creating division or separation, without, that is to say, undergoing a real process of separation, a condition in which the one is conscious of the many and many are filled with the presence of the one. That is to say, there is difference only in the soul form, not in soul essence, as he puts it here. And the third is a further modification, well, which creates diversified individuality, and this comes to ego ultimately. And therein comes the creation of the mind. In the third poise of the supermind, the mental consciousness or mind comes into existence. Because there, the diversification, it has got to individualize itself, you see, particularize itself. There in the one and the many, the consciousness is present, and the infinite is all the time point of reference. When The creation of the supermind takes place as the second poise of diversification of one into many and many into one. There, all the time, the background of reference of infinity is always present, so that the unity is not lost. You see, the infinite background is not lost. Whereas in the further play which takes place, the diversification is so complete that a creation of ego comes into existence and the ground of infinity is lost.
Is that where Advaita and Vishishtadvaita and what
No, not at all. No, that has nothing to do with this. This is he's explaining the dynamic process of creation from the supermind to our creation, and he is showing that our creation, though ignorant, divided, and full of division, suffering, conflict, and strife, is a derivation from the truth consciousness. Is not something so new as to say that it is foreign to it, so to say. It is not a foreign creation in the sense, or something that has been brought into existence out of vacuum. No, it is something that has come out and as a derivative from the truth consciousness. It is a secondary working of diversification, creating the ego. In the first unity of things, the universe is contained in eternal potentiality. And you see, not in temporal actuality, but all is one and not many. And all forms are forms of the one. And thoughts, images are not outsiders, just as our thoughts and images are not outsiders. So also there, all the names and forms are included in that unity. It's the real play of the conscious being. In the second modification, in which the unity is worked out into many in one and one in many, each name and form, well, it would realize itself as the stable consciousness or stable self, supporting by the concentration of conscious self the individual play. And this he gives the instance of Agni, where the god is addressed by many names, you see, and he is said to be all the gods, and yet individually he is made to fulfill only his own function. And he is addressed also as a child of man. There he gives the instance to show that the process of one being the infinite or all, one, each being all, and all being in each, and all as the divine, the three formulae only make up the total manifestation of or total aspect and understanding of the ultimate reality. If you take only one, then you take only the partial view of the manifestation of the Supreme. You must take all, that is, each contains all, and each is in all equal, and all are again the same one. And unless and until the one is the individual self of the one, the cosmic self of the all, and the transcendent above the two, well, you have not got the right perspective of the truth consciousness. You see, truth consciousness is itself as a center of the individual. It is the common, cosmic, or all-pervading consciousness of the all, and it is beyond the individual and the cosmic consciousness, both of which are derivative of that one. But these three aspects, if you grasp, which are expressed in the formula of the Upanishad, they see all beings in the self in all being, and all being again divine. Well, then it gives you the correct perspective. Well, here he is trying to make out the working out of how the supermind taking the three poises becomes origin of our ignorant world. You see, our mental world is a derivation of the third poise, in which a further modification of the unity of the truth consciousness takes place, creating individualized ego, if you like to call it. Individualized ego is the further modification or limitation of this consciousness. And then he gives some idea of the soul, individual soul, as it can be envisaged in the mind by a picture of the supermind. If you picture the supermind, He says we have begun to grasp intellectually, and he's clearly putting it, we have begun to grasp intellectually what is the divine, what is the eternal reality, and to understand how out of that eternal reality the world has come. That which has come out of the divine must inevitably return to the divine. That is our logic, of life divine. That because it has come from the divine, it should be logical for it to go back to the divine. This, he says, we have grasped intellectually. That is true. And it is not that the things have been clear in experience. Yes. And he puts this question, how must now we must change and what we must become in order to arrive there in the divine consciousness, in our natural and nature, in our life, in our relations with others. That is to say, we are not after a solitary ecstatic attainment, pertaining to our own individual self. We are looking at the problem in which the potential human soul will be able to understand, first of all, change in such a way and become so changed as in his nature and life, in his relationship with others, as to be able to embody the divine life. How must we change in order to do that? He is putting that problem. And in showing it, he says that we have seen the descent of the divine. Descent from the truth consciousness to the ego formation, to life and to matter. That we are seeing further. But we have not seen the possibility and necessity of ascent, because we stand at a point where the descent is understood, but what is to be done? In the descent, we have lost the contact, so to say, of the infinite. The background was lost and diversified ego was created. So the problem here in the 17th chapter that he puts is that the ascent we have known to some extent, and we have also understood that we are that divine that has descended. Now the problem is for this divine to ascend. The divine that has descended and taken up the position of the ego, so to say. Now for that divine, the problem is the problem of ascent, re-ascent to the divine, ascending back to the divine consciousness. And you can say that this who wants to ascend the divine consciousness is already contained in the Satchidananda. It's not here created for the first time. It's the ego that wants to ascend. Yes, that is true. But that which wishes to go back to the origin is already there in the Satchidananda. You see, it's self-contained in the Supreme. Yes, that is the divine soul. You can call that the Jivatman, if you like, the central being of the human individual who is here, ego, but the central being is already there, not separated there. Well, that is how he is trying to put here the logic of the divine soul, that self-existence in the being and the free play of immortal life. You see, it is there in the divine, pure and infinite, free play of the immortal life in its becoming, and there is no birth, nor death, nor change. There, yes, where the true individual already is contained in the Satchidananda, in the infinite, for it there is no birth, no death, and no change. Quite right. Eternal Satchidananda, and it is free from time and therefore inalienably in bliss. Now, to the intellect, this absolute is only intellectual conception. It tells us that infinity is there or is in some way, but the intellect cannot bring us into its presence. I'm quoting from his book just to bring to our mind the idea that he knows very well that this is an intellectual exposition. And so he says the intellect cannot bring us into its presence. The divine soul lives in it, and it feels itself a manifestation of the absolute. And we might have sometimes a glimpse of it. It would, in that case, you see, the divine soul that we envisage is as already existent and contained in the Satchidananda. It would not only lose not the background of the infinite and be free from time and birth and change and death and so on, But divine soul will simultaneously live in the one and in the many. Because there the unity is self-existent and automatically operative. It is not an effort to realize the one in the many and many in the one. On the level of the Satchidananda, where the division has not yet intervened. And the divine soul, therefore, simultaneously would be in the one and in the many. The two terms of expression of the Satchidananda. Well, all actually live so, but the divided consciousness of man compels us to live either in the one or in the many. Actually, also the one and the many do coexist, but in man's consciousness, either he is compelled by the limitation of his consciousness to accept the position of one or accept to live in the many. He must abandon the many in order to live in the one, or live in the many and forget the one. Well, this is inevitable to present condition. Divine soul is not so enslaved to this divorce and this duality from the real. You see, divine soul there, of which we are talking as pre-existent to this ego that is diversified here, well, it lives there in one in the many and many in the one at the same time. It is not subjected to divorce and duality. Uh, Infinite self consciousness and infinite self extension and diffusion. That is how it feels. It does not feel separation at all. Self concentration is being, self extension is the many. So for it, it is not a problem. Self extension and diffusion, one in the many, and many drawn always to the one. This vast view is the mold of truth consciousness. This vast view in which the self extension to the here becomes many and division, but there it is only felt as a self extension of the one and self concentration of the one in its own self. Well, this is the real Advaita, he says. All is in it is potentialities of the one. And all that we find expression comes out of this silence of this one. Now, divine soul, when it extends itself, will be conscious of the three grades of the Satchidananda of which we have spoken. That all things are the self, means its own self, one self being, and one self becoming, and all soul forms of the one, and the whole in the one and whole in all, and it sees relatively that process to be absolute behind the form. It is based on self knowledge, self in us becoming all existences in the self, and seeing the self in all existences. This is the triple formula which you have dealt with. This divine soul deals with others also as his own self. There on the level, it deals with the others as its own self. There is no division, and therefore, as the Veda puts it, Agni is called Indra, Indra is called Vayu, Vayu is called another, and each one is expected to fulfill its function as a working out of an infinite power. It is not expected to operate independently of others. That happens when the mind intervenes. We will, in the next chapter, he says, that are following, consider the psychological conditions for realizing this divine soul in life. How to bring the expression of the divine soul here. That we will consider next. Only we are now trying to see the existence of the divine soul in the truth consciousness and to know in what state it would be living if it had its permanent station there. If the individual soul, which is already contained in the Satchidananda, if it had its station permanently there, in what state would it live? Permanent identity with the one, a concentration in the one, a self-extension in the many, in the form of all the multiple souls, which are all the time referable to the one, so that there would be no loss of identity, and yet there would be a particularization or a variation, so that it would function as an individual soul form without any difference in the soul essence. It is given a particular function because of the will, but it is not therefore divided from all the rest because they are all the operations of one and the same will. If the Satchidanand projects a mental consciousness predominantly in one divine soul and projects a vital consciousness predominantly in another soul, the two will not feel as if they were isolated from each other. They will know that the will that is operating is one. The power that is acting in both, in one form in the mental power, another vital power, is one and the same, deriving from one inalienable, eternal, infinite source. That would be the status of the divine soul. It's just describing the status of the divine soul in the supermind. And what would be the status of the soul in the supermind? Well, there he is trying to show that it would be not a individuated mental egoistic soul separated from its source. It would have an individuation and a variation, and yet it would be constantly conscious of the background of infinity and multiplicity. It would be conscious of the unity and the many. The one would be constantly there, the many would be there. And the divine soul, living in the truth consciousness of the supermind, would be conscious both of the oneness of the many and manyness of the one, and its own particular differentiation, or you can say determination, which has brought it into existence, so that it would know that it had to fulfill a particular variation, a function assigned to it, which is common with the functions assigned to all the rest. And the agency or the power that assigns the function is one and the same, so that it would live on the basis of that unity of consciousness, you see. Well, this is he says it's an intellectual concept which I give here, and the conditions of realizing this divine soul in life we will put down afterwards when we come to the detail of, process, so to say. Then he takes up three powers, and that is important just to understand. Mind, vital being, and matter. Mind, life, and body. He is trying now in chapter, I think it is 18th, yes, 18th, 19th, and 20th. I won't take up all the three, but we'll take up two if possible, 18th and 19th, in which he deals with the mind and life, and shows how they are derived from the supermind, how that is a derivative action of the supramental consciousness, truth consciousness. Mind as we know it is derived from that. Life as we feel it is derived from that. Well, there he is trying to make out a relation of the supermind to mind, life, and body. We have seen 5 factors, isn't it? We have seen the 5 factors like that. The transcendent. You call it the infinite or eternal and Satchidanand if you like. Then it is the supermind or truth consciousness. And then from there is derived mind, life, body. Now here what we are trying to do is, here this is called, between this is the divine Maya. Divine Maya, you call it, and this is the undivine Maya, undivine nature. Nature. Their Maya is nature, nothing else. This is another name for that. Now, what is the relation between these two and these three? That is what he is trying to work out. Relation between this and these three, mind, life, and body. He is trying to now show in these 3 chapters that follow, the chapter 18th, 19th, and 20th, the relation between matter, life, and mind, and how that is related to the truth consciousness and the transcendent. That is what he is trying to show in these chapters. Yes, and that is little analytical. It's not that we go into every detail, because when we take the position from the basic chapters which you have worked out in up to 12th chapter, afterward these chapters you can know that they are only application of the basis established. I mean, the chapters that now follow are only application of the basis that is already established. The relation, if it is as we worked out, that this supermind is a working out of, dwelling out of a self-existent delight into movement. Eternal self-existent delight, concentrated within itself, gives you the view of the transcendent, eternal, and infinite. And when it moves out into, well, self-extension, or it moves out play of delight, when it takes place, delight self-concentrated and delight into play, then the world is created. Well, he says that we don't feel the delight. The argument with which he begins this chapter is that if the universe or the world or creation is a play of the delight of the eternal and the infinite, mind, life, and body do not feel the presence of the delight and the experience of it. It is the opposite of the original constitution of the being. So, is it a relation? Is it possible to have a relation between the two? Or is it that you have to, well, can mind ascend to it? That is one problem. Or has it to abandon life? Has it to abandon mind, life, and body in order to ascend to the delight? Is it possible for mind by some process to expand out into that delight? Or is it now compulsory that mind must abandon this formula, mind, life, and body here? Then it can perhaps somehow return to the delight of which it is an expression here. He says that it's not necessary to abandon because mind, life, and body are within the formula of the real idea of the supermind. They have not been created in opposition to the truth consciousness. It is not as it were Superman wanted to create a perfect world and suddenly the world happened to come into existence imperfect. That is not the way. Yes, in the working out of the supermind, an individuation was necessary to be created out of matter, and that individuation, became so thoroughly individual as to not to remember its origin. That's all. The whole problem for Supermind is how to restore that process. That's all. It's a double process from spirit to matter and matter to spirit. So he says this is a derivative working of the real idea of the Supermind. Truth consciousness has seen the possibility of a mental world, vital world, and material world. And it is that which has projected itself into actuality for us. So, as it is a derivative working, it is not necessary to abandon life or abandon mind or abandon body in order to go back to the source of real idea, the truth consciousness and Satchidananda. That is the line. Now, why do they operate as they do? On the basis of separation, creating first division, then conflict, then pain, suffering, conflict, and all the problems of life, because they are separated. The problem has become acute on account of separation of these instruments, mind, life, and body. And if the separation is removed, then expansion of consciousness also is possible. If the separation from the original is removed, the same consciousness which is now limited, working on a basis of division and separation, can expand into its original truth consciousness, and then the problem would not be to abandon but how to give the process of expansion. That is all the problem is how to provide the process of expansion from limited egoistic mental, vital, and physical consciousness to a consciousness of unity, universality, infinity, and delight. That is the only problem to be solved. This can take place. Then manifestation also, a divine manifestation can occur, and even a remolding of all these instruments, mind, life, and body, can also occur. For that, we have to take cognizance of the fact that for man, the manifestation is taking place on the basis of matter, on the basis of earth. That man is founding himself as if he was proceeding from the earth upwards. from the earth upwards. So, in the earth consciousness, if the establishment of the connection between the mental consciousness and that one it takes place, then on the earth itself there will be a necessity for a connection. And after the connection, for an expression or manifestation of that truth when the connection is made. Something more than mind would manifest. If the connection is permanent, then that which is beyond mind would remold the instrumentation of mind, life, and body. Establishment of therefore a connection by supplying to men the process of self-expansion, expansion of consciousness, well, that is the problem. Man has contacted, even so much subjected to ignorance and division and conflict and suffering, still the inner soul in man, he says, has contacted the truths in the form of various conception of a divine entity. You can call God, some have called it, infinite, some have called it Lord, or whatever name you give. Now, the inner contact between the consciousness working within the formula of ignorance of mind, life, and body, and that one in the inner world has been, he says, more or less, sometimes more, and sometimes in historical conditions less, but outer contact has been made. Inner unity with the, with the divine has been achieved more or less by some people or even by many people. But the victory of God outside in the field of external nature has not been achieved. Victory of the divine truths, even in the midst of ignorance, with the mind and division given, with life and its difficulties also and body limitations, even then, an inner contact and working out of the human consciousness, contact of inner being of the man with the divine consciousness has been done. To a good extent, it has been carried out in practice by some people or by many people, even you can say. And then not only the manifestation and maintenance of the divine consciousness in the world would be possible, but also that his power can remold my life and body until the image of the Satchidananda is projected in life, so to say. And the victory in the outside may be the victorious achievement of God in humanity. The next step would be the victory of the divine, yes, in the outer manifestation in life. That would be the victory of God in the outer field. And it is for that, he says, that we are trying to see if that is possible. How does the mind happen to be held in the supermind? It is held as a real idea. We have seen that all cosmic mind, universal mind is held there as a potentiality of the Supreme. All perfection which mind has conceived is already there, because mind would not get the idea if it was not there. Always the sign of what you conceive is that what you conceive is existent somewhere. Otherwise the concept would not come. The idea, thought, is a representative of something that exists somewhere. Otherwise it won't come to man. You see, you cannot bring idea into your mind if something did not correspond to the idea and existed somewhere. This is axiomatic almost for the working of the mind. And that which mind conceives as ideal is really that which already exists in the supermind as real idea. What is the ideal that mind conceives? General concept of an ideal is an eternal reality not yet manifested, is it not? Not yet manifested or realized in the conditions of our life. Ideal is some eternal reality which is seen, felt, known as possible, but yet not realized in the conditions of, well, actually obtaining in life, in ordinary, that is, see, and this ideal itself is an indication that that which is envisaged by the mind is already in the real idea. It is that which is pulling, in fact, the supramental real idea working from beyond the mind is pulling the mind, giving it a concept of an ideal. But that which is ideal to the mind is already existent in reality, you see. It is there present. The whole of mental working, therefore, reaching out to this idea is held in the higher consciousness. The divine Maya comprehends both Vidya and Avidya. The divine Maya, which creates, has the cognizance or has the comprehension both of knowledge and ignorance. Ignorance of the mind also is held into it, so to say. And therefore, it must have a consciousness that contains all the finites. All the finite working of the mind is also contained in the in the divine Maya. When this aspect of mind is realized by the mental consciousness of man, then mind would not be rejected. In the scheme of perfection, supposing one reached the reality, the supreme truth consciousness, what would be the use of mind afterwards? Mind need not be necessarily abrogated. Mind is not an instrument to be thrown away. It is not something that would have no use in the scheme of manifestation of divine perfection. That is exactly what he's trying to show, that it has a place in the truth consciousness. By showing that it is an operation, a secondary operation of the truth consciousness, the only difficulty being created by a complete isolation of the ego. We see division of the being. But as the division is removed, mind would be an instrument of the higher consciousness. Immediately the barrier is removed, veil is removed, mind would not have necessarily to be rejected. Otherwise, the whole purpose, you see, if you look at it as if this was something negative, then when the truth consciousness is attained, there will be nothing left for mind to do. Nothing left for mind to do, for life to do. All has to be, well, you have to tolerate it somehow, if you like, till you end the bodily existence, or you have to reject and abandon the instrumentation. He is, on the contrary, showing that as it is a secondary operation of the truth consciousness, it is even now operating only behind a veil, without mind's consciousness. The moment mind becomes conscious that, oh, it is not necessary, and this is introducing an unnecessary division into the working of the infinite consciousness or truth consciousness, the mind would immediately then fulfill its true function. What is the true function of mind? Defines it. True function of mind would be restored when it knows and veil is removed and becomes a conscious working of the truth consciousness. It is to translate the infinite in terms of the finite. That is the function of the mind. To translate the infinite in terms of the finite, to measure out the infinite, to limit it, to depiece it. Only the forgetfulness of the infinite is not allowed to intervene. See, mind is allowed to perform its function of, well, you can say, translating the infinite in terms of the finite. Not forgetting the infinite. That would be the change. The second function that the mind would perform when it contacts the supermind would be to hold the forms apart from each other. Otherwise, they will mingle up. So the mind is allowed to function of holding the forms, not the spirit forms, apart from each other by the phenomenal and a purely formal delimitation. The delimitation is not actual, you see, of their activity, behind which the governing universality of the being will remain completely conscious and untouched. Now, I give one instance. Supposing America. Now, you say that we want to, America is one. Nobody doubts it. Then you say yes, but you see, we want to now, set apart some organization of social and political life. Then you say, all right, you make a New York state, you make, each state. Now, therefore, you put on the map a limit. Does it divide America? It does not, isn't it? Well, it's just something similar about which he is speaking about mind. He says, to hold forms apart from each other, it forms the states are held apart from each other. Yes, by phenomenal and a purely formal delimitation. It is a formal delimitation. It's not really saying now we have nothing to do with that state and so on. No. You put a line on the map, but the map is only a delimitation for practical purposes. It's not that you are dividing anything. A delimitation which becomes purely formal of activities behind which the universality remains always conscious and untouched. Just as the oneness of the nature is not touched. In fact, it is conscious. And yet the delimitation, well, that would be the function of the mind. You see, the two functions which the supermind will allow mind to continue when supermind actually takes hold of the mind is its power to render the infinite terms of the finite, to limit all the time and say, because if you all the time deal with the infinite as infinite, you cannot have life. As I give you the instance of a roll of cloth, if the whole roll of cloth is there, you cannot dress. If the whole is infinite is there, but what to do with it? If you have to dress somebody, a child, a man, somebody, you see, then you cut from the roll. Now this cutting is a necessity. It is not as if you are dividing anything. You are utilizing. You see, it is reducing the infinite to a finite for a purpose. The infinity is not lost. It's like that delimitation. It is there all the time present. But it is being applied to, well, conditions of material manifestation or earth consciousness. Because earth consciousness is, well, based on matter. And in matter, the subdivision or division must go of the infinite to the last finite. That is what the scientists are doing. And he shows that they will not come to zero. They can go on dividing. Because behind is the supermind. He said this is infinite, this is infinitesimal, it is less than that, less than that. They can go on dividing ad infinitum and never come to zero. They will never come to a point to say, now there is nothing. There will always be something because there is infinite is being divided. You understand? You go on divide, the infinite will be there behind, the supermind is there, it says. Well, mind can also go on taking hold of the infinite and dividing the infinite into finite forms because that is its proper function. So he says that it being delimiting or translating the infinite in terms of the finite and to measure it, to limit it, and without forgetting the infinity, without forgetting the presence of the infinite. That is one. And to hold the forms apart from each other by a phenomenal and a purely formal delimitation of their activity behind which the governing universality will remain conscious and untouched. That would be the function of the mind when it is. We have already seen that, the working of the mind as a dividing faculty. We have done it before, so I don't want to repeat. That mind generally takes the part from the whole and then treats the part as if it was the whole and it delimits and all that we have done. So I don't want to take time on that, you see. Now, second point, the elements of division came into being, because mind takes up because mind takes up the cutting up the whole and dividing into being and taking the portion and dealing with it as if it was a whole, well, creates the first division. In the same way, the omnipotence of the one is taken in the self-extension and translated into multiplicity of conscious souls. And multiplicity of soul forms then is translated into, well, divided habitations of extended unity. And in each, the Purusha that is manifested becomes so completely identified as to feel that it is confined to that status. It is that which creates the sense of the ego in the human individual. And this fall of mind from the supermind proceeds by an exclusive concentration of consciousness, exclusive identification with the actual object or idea, form, or image before it, you see, and complete identification with the movement, with the field or form, and losing sight of the rest. It is that which is called the fall, you see, and this veil that divides it has to be rent. The real function to be attempted. I mean, the practical thing to be attempted. Well, it has to be the division has to be set right by rending the veil which divides the finite from the infinite. Mind takes up exclusive concentration on the object and excludes all the rest of the infinite from its exclusive concentration on object, on field, or energy, or image, or anything that is presented to it. And he says that problem we shall tackle when we come to actually dealing with the functionings. Yes, mind is therefore the final operation of the apprehending truth consciousness, which makes all this possible. And what we call ignorance does not create anything new. What we call ignorance does not create a new thing or bring into existence absolute falsehood. No, but it is only a misrepresentation of the truth. The ignorance is mind separated in its knowledge from the source of knowledge, and giving a false rigidity and a mistaken appearance of opposition and of conflict to the harmonious play of the supreme truth in its universal manifestation. The universal aspect being lost, the mind gets, into giving an idea of rigidity to the forms and to the processes, a appearance of opposition, appearance of conflict to the working which is really harmonious. You look at the vegetable world or the material world and you find there is no conflict. Forces are working quite all right. It is when mind is separating itself from the original, universal working out and trying to give a false rigidity to objects and things, or mistaken appearance of opposition and conflict to the harmonious play, well, then only the difficulty is created by the mind. Individuality is really a separate form of the oneness, and becoming a center of the universe instead of knowing itself as one concentration of the universal, the individual separates himself from the form of oneness and tries to become the center of the universe. You see, instead of the individual operating as or knowing itself as one concentration of the universal, it takes itself as a center of the universe. That's self-ignorance, therefore. That is perversity of our existence, and it stands fortified in self-limitation. Limitation of self, that is ignorance. The egoism which is the form taken up by this ignorance. To say that I am only this and so little, that is ignorance. To feel and be aware of that limitation as the true being, the imposition of the limit as the limit of one's self-awareness or possibility of one's consciousness, well, that is ignorance. It's a false imposition on the true individuality. This individuality is only form of the one. Instead of it becomes a separate center of the one, or tries to become a separate center of all, center of the universe. All ignorance and perversity is only distortion of the truth. and the right. It is not absolute falsehood, and it can get back to the truth. Then it becomes, an instrument of the truth afterwards, and ceases to be the crooked working out of an original truth. It would then become an instrument of the original truth. Well, thus he shows that though mind is a derivative of the supermind, it has imposed a separative veil between its working and the supermind. And when the veil is removed, then mind will not be an obstruction but an instrument. And mind will function rightly by, first of all, giving form, finite forms to the infinite. That's one. And giving a delimitation which will be practical necessity without a division. So it will be holding the forms apart for some practical purposes. That the two functions which the mind, well, is bound to fulfill in the scheme of the supramental, well, perfection envisaged by life divine. That in the scheme of life divine, therefore, mind will not have to be abrogated as an instrument. Mind will have to be utilized when it becomes an instrument of the supermind. Because it is at present a derivative working, and it is working under a veil and therefore under self-limitation and ignorance. Well, when the ignorant veil is removed and self-limitation becomes realization of the self, then mind becomes a conscious instrument. That is how you have to look at all the instrumentation of human nature. Life then also would become like that. It takes the problem of life, you see. Uh, the triple evolution is accomplished. The evolution of this triple evolution up to now, the universal form evolution, you see here when you come from matter, first line, come to life, and then you come to mind here. These are the three levels, and man stands here. This is accomplished evolution. You see, this is, as he calls it here, accomplished evolution. And this line is tending further, you see, all the time. This is matter, this is life or vital force or universal vital and universal mind. And then man combines in him, epitomizes in him, so to say, the bodily consciousness which is matter, life consciousness which is vital, and mental consciousness which he adds to it. So he is now, so to say, representative of the accomplished process of evolution. Man represents accomplished evolution, and there is a tendency, or you can say, a tension tending forward beyond mind already. You see, it is, and evolution is what is accomplished is not the only possible evolution. Evolution is also possible beyond what is accomplished. That is what most people, when they think about the problem of man, don't understand. That mind is not the last term of this process. And it's not here that the full point must be called. You cannot ask nature to stop at a certain point. That's how Life Divine began in the third and fourth chapter, if you remember. We cannot carry a halt to nature and say, you shall not go further. In fact, there is already a tension or tendency in the mental consciousness of man always to go beyond. The difficulty is that being divided, the mind always works on the plane of the mind. It was as it were now. Let us take another aspect of it. You see, take one plateau. There is another plateau and a third plateau. Now, what mind is doing here is mind. And what mind is doing is it's going round like that. That's all that it is doing. You see, it is going on. Yeah. But he said the problem is to go up, and there is another round that is waiting. The unaccomplished evolution, the accomplished process of evolution is one. Yes. Mind thinks today, intellect of man thinks, that by going round I will solve the problem. It's not, because the problem is how to go to the universal that is not manifested. You see, the unaccomplished evolution, accomplished evolution is here, right? That is up to mind. That you can go on ad infinitum because each is infinite. You can be here in life and go on the round of life. Animality, you can go on as the animal consciousness is going on. You see, it is from there that the rise was there. You see, it is from here that the rise has come. And now here to say that we must go on here is to limit arbitrarily the process of evolution. You must go further. The unaccomplished evolution is waiting. And tendency is there, process of force is there in man's consciousness to go beyond. Well, he says you justify it by taking a conscious stand and going beyond. Well, this gives you an idea of what he wants to say in this now. Accomplished process of evolution has taken place up till now, and in the mental consciousness, the triplicity of mind, life, and body has to be now overpassed. But we saw that supermind is involved and indirectly working behind the veil of mind also. Is it working behind life? He says yes, supermind is also working behind life. Life has not come into existence against the fiat of the supreme truth consciousness. Truth consciousness stands also behind life. That is what he's trying to show here. Now, when you say supermind is involved in mind, in the mental consciousness, then there is no mental consciousness that is not in life. Because mind manifests itself in life, is it not? Mind is manifested. All mind, when it wants to express here on the earth consciousness, it has to work through life. Then it says if supermind is behind mental consciousness or mental evolution, it is automatically behind life because there is no mind without life. So it is already behind life. Life also is a functioning or working out of the supramental. When you say consciousness, life consciousness, you mean to imply not only awareness but intelligence. Life, when you talk of vital being or life, you impute to it or ascribe to it consciousness. And when you say life is a consciousness, you mean behind it is the working of intelligence, knowledge. When you say intelligence, but when intelligence works, it perceives only a truth which is already existing. Intellect or mind perceives the truth. When it knows the truth, well, it perceives the truth which already exists. And it exists in the supermind. That truth which the mind is able to perceive already exists in the supermind. As mind manifests here on earth in life, without life there is no expression of mind. So we put the problem, what is life? Life. Mind manifests in life. Mind is independent of life in certain ways. What is life in which mind manifests? In which mind expresses itself? Is life related to supermind, truth consciousness, and Satchidananda? As we saw, is mind connected with the supermind? Now we come, well, mind is expressed in life. So we say, yes, but what is life? And then, is this life in which mind manifests related to the supermind or to Satchidananda? You see, it is a mind holds life holds mind. So when you say mind is a secondary working of the supermind or derivative of the supermind, well, automatically you put the question, well, where is mind expressing itself? Have you seen mind without life or without body? No. Mind is always in life. Well, then what is life? And where if we have to answer whether life is connected also with the supermind, and whether life is connected with Satchidananda. And that is very important because all the world is pressed with the problem that life, life, life. Nobody cares for mind so much as life. This is is it not? You see the history of the world, and that's what you will see. Most majority of mankind is dedicated to life. Life, life, life. And they say don't care for mind. Doesn't matter if you don't understand. If you enjoy it is all right. That's how life catches people, isn't it? Yes, it is the life which is the nave of the creation, they say in Veda. You see, it's the nave in which all the manifestation is centered is life. Whatever in the three worlds is centered in life, one Upanishad says. Whatever you see in the universe is centered on life. You see earth, but it's manifestation of life. You see the vegetable world, well, it is centered on life. You see the animal world, it is centered on life. You see human world, it is centered on life. So life, then therefore he put the question, what is life? And whether it is related to Supermind and Sachidananda. And by what compulsion from the infinite it came to birth. A secondary working of Supermind created the necessity of mind. All right. And in the diversification from one to many, diversification gave rise to ego, and therefore, well, mind came into existence. But what has given rise to life from the supermind? What is the original element in supermind from which life has evolved and come into existence here or has derived? Because the first thing when a philosopher turns his gaze to life in 50-50, you can say, there is always a cry, life is an evil. They would say, life is, well, Schopenhauer, I think, is it not? Yes. He would say it is a delusion, is it? A delirium, insanity of a force that has gone random, at a tangent. You know, it is a force that is going at a, huh? Yeah. Yes. So they say that life is something so condemned in the sense that it is always imperfect, restless, and striving and inviting suffering and difficulties, dangers, and never attaining what it always wants to attain. Is it like the labor of Sisyphus? You see, the cup is always receding. It says, "I will be happy. I will be this. I will be that." But it tries and tries, and when it goes forward and forward, the thing that is there is alluring and going more and more further. It never gains what it wants to gain. Well, that is why life is regarded as something which is a. Is it so? That is the question. Is it an evil? Is it a delusion? If it is so, why it is so? That also we must ask. And if it is not so, then we must find out a way out of it. You see, we must find out a solution. You can say our conception is an omnipresent reality that is the truth of the world and universe. Well, then we can put not why life is our life is imperfect or miserable, but why the imperfect or eternal, why the infinite and the eternal has inflicted such a life upon himself. Why did he invite such a self-infliction? Well, what was it in his constitution? Is it a divine principle at all? If not an evil, is it a divine principle? We have conceived and known this as a logical possibility that an infinite self-existent play of delight flows into universe. Well, is it a play of delight? Life also is a play of delight. You follow? If that is so in its origin, then if it is a divine principle, then it must be a working out or a flowing out of the original delight of existence. Play of Satchidananda, creating the world, well, flows into life. Is it so? Well, that is what you try to ask here. And we see when we turn our gaze toward life that there is a cosmic energy at work, a universal energy. It's not individual. Life in its mass or in its, in its great, view, if you take a vast view, you always feel that it is a cosmic energy which builds and creates forms and energies and, stimulations and disintegration and renewal. Disintegration and renewal. That's how it is going. And if you look at that, then disintegration renewal is only a process of life. That's not life. When you see disintegration and renewal, you are only taking cognizance of a process of life, not life itself. Life is X. and it disintegrates and renews. If you look at it from that point of view, death is only a process of life, isn't it? Because it's only disintegration and renewal. Even physically, it's only a disintegration and a renewal. Physical elements disintegrate, they are used by other organisms for their physical being, is it not? Renewal. When one physical body is dissolved or disintegrated, it becomes material for other physical bodies to come into existence. A renewal is there. So, death is only a process of life. In that case, death is not something that is, anti life. It's a process of life, in fact. It is something that has not to, um, even the death of the body, as you say, it's not a cessation of life. It's a continuation of the life of matter. Life will be used for formation of other body. Therefore, you put down one principle that in life, all renews, nothing perishes. All renews, nothing perishes. Everything is renewed. There is a renewal and not a perishing. Yes, that's it. All renews and nothing perishes. That you take as a first. Second, life energy is the infinite life energy, cosmic life energy is such that it must go on eternally creating. A force that creates and builds and maintains and destroys forms. That is life. And earth that we see is also expression of that life. Matter is also expression of that life, really speaking. See, earth is life, plant is life, animal is life, man is life. That way. You see the so to say the rung or the height of the hill of life, so to say. Okay. On earth the vegetation grows on which the animals live. The plant lives on earth. Is it not? Yeah. The animal lives on the plant. Animal lives on the animal. Man lives on the plant and the animal. See? It's all life, is it not? Yes. It gets a sort of a hill of life, so to a mountain of life, which earth and the plant and the animal, man. Well, and all existence is therefore universal life that takes forms even of matter. All existence is nothing else but universal life. It's life which takes also the form even of matter. Even matter is a form of life because it is submental in its operation. It does not show existence of mind as other life shows. But there, the life is working under submental condition below mind, but it is life. You can say that we don't admit life in the metal and in the material elements. We stop at plant. You see that up to plant there is life. Below plant in the matter and the inorganic elements, there is no life. Now this is only an assumption because we work on the basis of the knowledge that we have of the operations of life. We work on the basis of what we know about life. But there is no proof that life does not exist in the metal or in the inorganic elements. And that is, he gives the proof of Jagdish Chandra Bose, an Indian, physiologist or biologist who proved the nervous reaction in the plants. He showed that the plant can be drugged, that the plant suffers when you cut, and the plant dies when you give it poison. This is he tried to show the parallelism of the nervous system of man and the plants, so that stimulation from outside operates. And he brought brought to the scientific world another idea, fatigue of metals. When electric current is passed, you see, several times the resistance grows because the metal through which the current passes is fatigue. See, there is what might be called in human language a fatigue, and it is that which is felt as an element in the constitution of matter. Well, he gives that idea just to show that our idea of life is very incomplete. That life can exist, in and operate in other forms than those in which we are familiar. Force of life can be inanimate, you see, and animate both. And when you say mere material form, you do not always mean to say that it has no life. Generally, we connect life with movement, with breathing, with eating, with feeling, with desire. That is one way of looking at it. And we forget that life can exist also without breathing. There are proofs in which people have shown that when breath is held and the heart stops, life remains. So these are operations of life, you see, but life is not limited to them. You are not seeing life when you see the operations of life. Means that to confine life to what it is known to us by, I mean, eating and breathing only are processes of life, really speaking, and not life itself. They are only processes of life, breathing or eating or desiring or movement and so on. Because even breath stops and life can continue. The same thing can happen without food. There is a record of people, 90 days. 90 days, life has continued without food. In the case of the Irishman, who fasted in the jail. And there are other cases also in India. The giants have fasted more than 120 days. For life, you cannot therefore confine life to the processes of life. That's all. You can't say that therefore life is only eating. No, eating is a process of life. Life can be without breathing, and response to stimulus is not always life. Response to stimulus is only the reaction from somewhere inside, reaction of life. Life is in fact everywhere, whether secret or manifest, organized or elemental, universal and all pervading. It is imperishable, and response to stimulus is only a sign of life and not life itself. Response to stimulus is a sign of life, cannot be identified to life. There is therefore a vibrant reception and a reply, as there is a will to grow and will to be. Life is not only, response to stimulus. All the time, life is not. Life is also growing. Where there is no stimulus, it is without stimulus, it is growing. So to confine life to the stimulations of life or responses to outside stimulus also is to mistake a process of life for life itself. Well, it is a tendency to grow, a will to continue to be. It has a reception and a reply, but it can also have a submental organization. It need not have a mental organization all the time. In the plant, the nervous system which reacts is not mental, it is submental. And it still is life. So, the life force even exists in forms that are dead. In the dead form, the life is working for disintegration. The form is to be disintegrated. So, when the man or the animal is dead, it putrefies, showing the existence of life after death. It is a process of disintegration of life only, you see. But life is there, even when the form is dead, so to say. And in some cases, even the revival of life after what seems to be death also is possible. So that life can be revived. And even when life is suspended, mind can go on. We are only trying to see, analyze that what life is. You see, we are only seeing the process of life and trying to see its scale of life. And then we can say that life does seem to exist even in matter, because in matter there is a definite behavior. Existence of material qualities or powers of material elements is a sign of operation of a will and knowledge and intelligence. Attraction and repulsions of elements, the atoms or the particles, is a sign of, indication of some movement of, what to the conscious being would become like and dislike. What is positive and negative, in the material world becomes in the world of life, attraction and repulsion, liking and disliking. Well, that is what becomes in the lower world something which is felt as mechanical, inconscient attraction and repulsion. Well, in trance also life exists and life functions. Even though life functions are suspended, life exists. In hibernation, or hibernating period of the insect, the most surprising thing is for 6 months, life is completely suspended. In the icy regions of the Himalaya, there are, the what you call the small insects that simply stop life and are surrounded by life. And when ice melts, they walk back again. All functions again begin. So the hibernation shows the suspension of life is not end of life either. It's a process there again also. Well, when body organism is impaired, then only life does not work into it. When we say that man is dead, what we mean to say is that the body organism became completely unutilizable by life. When the body is impaired in its functioning so that life cannot function into it, then life withdraws. Life is not destroyed. Life withdraws from an instrument in which it finds now it will not hold the current of life, so to say. The organism will breathing and all these are only process of life, and the process being impossible, the original energy or force or consciousness withdraws from it. That is all. So life is, really speaking, when you see from this point of view, it's a dynamic play of a universal force. Mind is present in it. The nervous system also is present in the life force, in the play of life. And play of life, when it takes place as a mutuality, a relation, a give and take. You can say a relation is formed, a receptivity is attained, a mutuality is brought into existence in the play of life. This is the main characteristic of life. There is nervous response, there is mental response, there is response of nerve is not always mental. And yet, the nervous response shows the presence of consciousness. Because all consciousness is not mental. In plant, the symptoms are seen, as we say, of sensation, of pleasure and pain, of waking and sleep, and of fatigue. This has been seen in the nervous working out of the plant life. And in the body, many processes of life go on automatically without conscious, reaction of the individual. In the atom, we feel the presence of will and desire in the form of atomic attraction and repulsion, in the form of negative and positive workings, which is operation of a subconscious will, if you like, or submental intelligence. Therefore, we have to grant that consciousness is everywhere, even in matter. And consciousness is the play of force. And this conscious force is life. That is life. Life as a scale of universal energy in which the transition from the inconscient to consciousness is managed. The inconscient to consciousness. Well, the transition is through life. To our minds, there is something inconscient, something conscient. The change from the inconscient to the conscient is effected by the intervention of life, what we call life. Life, conscious energy comes and manifests itself in matter and develops in matter life form and mind form. So it is a intermediary power, life, latent or submerged in matter, delivered, by its own force into submental being, and finally delivered into emergence of mind or mental consciousness. So life seems to be operating in matter, life seems to be operating on vital level of life itself, and life seems to be a basis on which mind is brought into existence. So life holds two ends, one matter, another mind. On one end it holds matter, on another it holds the mind in its expression, in its current. And mind into full dynamism, life comes into full dynamism when mind comes into existence. Oh, I must stop. Yeah.
It's in the earth for a purpose. And the next line, it has infinite, completely identified with, is that earth equals ego.
Yes, diversified into ego.
Infinite, completely identified with earth is the ego.
No, diversified into ego. Which is the chapter you are speaking of?
This line, I just had this line here, and I missed the word. Infinite, completely identified with what is the ego?
Oh, yes.
Infinite, completely identified
with the diversified mind. Yes. Diversified mind. That's right. That's right. This chapter into short span, because what the other part is more important, because what we want to see is not the application of this basis, but the new development. You see, what we want to work out is the new development that must come now.
Now have we done chapters 16, 17, and 18?
Yes, about. Now we are on chapter, I'll tell you which chapter we are in. We are actually in 19th chapter.
Oh, I'm part of 19 then.
Yes, part of 19th.
You put down there accomplished evolution.
Yes.
That means that I'm an accomplished evolution and I have not redirect truth.
Yes, that is true. No, can't. Sounds out.
They heard someone say accomplished evolution.
Yes. Yes, retrogression, no. That's optimistic. Optimistic, yes, that is optimism. You gives the rise to optimistic outlook. You can hope for the best. Somebody asked several times about return to animal consciousness from man. That Sharon always believed that was not possible. You see, because the transition from life to mind is a very radical change. Life force and mind, you see. So the coming back from mind to again the complete identification with the total life would be very difficult. He admitted the possibility of some part of vital being going back to animal life even. Some part of the vital being which is wedded to the animal life and not at all freed from animality may go back to the animal life, but not the whole of man. Transition is too radical from vital being to mind, to permit going back. You see, the bridge once is crossed, well, it is not possible to go back to the animal.
Does the animal evolve into?
Yes, that is it. That process can go on with the animal. Animal can come up to the level of the mental being, but man cannot revert to the animal easily. The possibility of animal evolving is seen in domesticated animal most. See, you have dog or a horse or a cat or elephant, and you see how much by human contact the animal becomes humanized. To tremendous extent, it can become birds even. The extent to which it becomes human is remarkable, remarkably human. And the gulf which man imagines is only his egoism and vanity, you see. She is quite conscious. She says, "You are talking about me," which is quite true.
Come on, that was so seamless.
We are exactly talking about you, and she is conscious about it. She is a complete.
Whether she's agreeing or rejecting.
Maybe she wants to go this way. Can I get in there? About evolution, she just wants to eat. No division at all, only an idea.
Which one?
There is no, the truth is, there is no division.
Yes, that's it. Truth is operative. Only what man has to do is to remove the veil. Then he will see the operation of the truth. Then a transformation will take place in his nature, which will change outer life also. Change outer life in the sense of removing all the problems, so to say, out of it. Problems in the sense of how man is feeling now about the problems. Because it is the intervention of this veil that is creating the necessity of problems. And necessity of problem is driving him to the solution. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So the problem, in fact, was necessary for him to seek the solution. That is the necessity of ignorance. You see, we will come to it when we come to the ignorance and its service to the divine. How ignorance is not anti-divine at all. It's a temporary stage interposed for a certain purpose. And if it was not there, then the intervention of unaccomplished evolution would not come. Problem must be created, then a solution will be sought. And then the solution will lead to the next step in evolution, you see. That is how the machinery is arranged for man to rise to the truth.
Did you call life by another name, or did you call it just life? I mean, you said life, and what is life?
Well, you can call it vitality if you like, vital being or life, the same thing.
Call it being.
No, life itself is, you can say in the Supreme, it's a vital being. Yes, you can say conscious being, conscious power of being. When it moves into manifestation, becomes life. But it's a conscious power. Flow of conscious power creating beings endowed with its conscious power means vital beings. Well, that becomes life force.
That is the being and becoming.
Yes, it is the, yes, the Chit Shakti, the conscious power, becomes life here, and mind here also, and matter here also, earth, you see, that's it. That's why they say that Shakti creates the world, you see. The mother is the creatrix of the world. That's another way of putting it.
First time I happened to that was in the issue Upanishad commentary. Or Binda, I mean, it's revealed so clearly that the being and becoming is one.
Yes.
I forget what they're all working. Both going on.
It is only when the mind puts the limitations of definition of being that you get into problems, you see. That if there is being, a being cannot be anything else but only be.
Yeah.
But only be means what? Without power, how can being be? There is always a power of being. And power aspect will be always there with the being. And if the being is infinite, it will have infinite power. Infinite power may act or not act. It may be static or dynamic, but the power will be always there. You cannot imagine a being without power. And cannot have a power or consciousness without being. Who holds that?
You can't have being, can you, Purani, you can't have being without becoming that. I mean, it would be like having the sun without the sunshine.
Yes, that's the you becoming is nothing else but the flow of being, operation of being, power of the being manifesting itself or automatically operating. It is not that it is intended, it is like that, it can't be otherwise.
And there's a full or can you have it withdrawn sometimes, as you said?
It can withdraw, it is not compelled to flow. Yes, there is no compulsion to flow, there is no compulsion for it to create. It automatically creates because it is it. No.
That's its nature.
Sri Purani, it's terribly interesting on the TV sometimes and in articles that aren't too highly medical,
Oh.
average person. The doctors are performing all sorts of marvelous operations on the heart and the brain
Mm,
through stilling the life forces.
mm,
It's kind of almost negation.
Yes,
The
yes.
breathing, everything.
Oh, yes.
They can breathe
Yes.
the sound or put you in a state of absolute quiet.
Yes. Yes, of course, that you are referring to the physical life.
You can go back.
Yes. The life has run even in the body. Physical life is one, then vital life, and then mental life. And then life independent of all the expression, which is consciousness, which is quite different. All conscious, not life.
No.
This is not life.
Oh, yes. Consciousness is not only life, say.